Привіт, I'm Chuck Olinik, a Ukrainian-American baptized with the name Yaroslav. That's also the name that I use in the historical reenactment group, the Society for Creative Anachronism, where I'm known as Yaroslav the Persistent, or Yari. Okay, I've done research for decades on Slavic stuff because I was raised in a Ukrainian house, and I have been putting together videos to put them up on my YouTube channel in order to share the information, because I believe information ought to be free. So, when I was teaching, if I got asked a question and I didn't know the answer, I didn't fake it like other people. I'd respond with, I don't know. You know, let's figure it out. Let's research it together. And this is one of those things that I'm just going to have to come clean about. I didn't know this. I'd done research on Slavic gods before, and I have videos up on the biggies like Perun. And when you mention Perun, you have to mention Veles. Perun is the Lord of Thunder, War, and Justice, and he resides at the top of the World Tree. At the base of the World Tree is his opposite number, Veles. Veles is a shape-shifting god and was seen as a huge serpent coiling around the roots at times, and he was ruling the world of the dead. And that was actually quite a lovely place, described in folk tales as a green and wet world, grassy plains and eternal spring, where various fantastic creatures dwell, and the spirits of the deceased watch over Veles' herds of cattle, which is also why Veles is often shown having horns. In some myths, they fight. In others, they don't. They're like a complement to each other. And in some myths, Veles is serving as the chief counselor of Perun. In others, their relationship resembles that of Bielobog, the white god, and Chernobog, the black god. Okay, you might remember him, like from Fantasia, Night on Bald Mountain, that stuff. Okay, there's that Slavic dualism at its best, these two constantly at each other's throats. The duality and the conflict of Perun and Veles does not represent that clash of good and evil. Okay, that's kind of simple. Rather, it's the opposition of natural principles of earth and water and substance. That's Veles against heaven and fire and spirit. That's Perun. And there were sacrifices of cocks and of human infants that were made to certain stretches of water in which Veles was known to reside. Veles also regularly sent spirits of the dead into the living world as his heralds, or sometimes as a result of the conflicts with Perun. Okay, we'll be talking about that like a lot. Festivals in honor of Veles were held near the end of the year in winter, when the time was coming that there seemed to be an end of the world order. Chaos seemed to be growing. The borders between the worlds of the living and the dead, they're fading, and ancestral spirits would be returning to walk amongst the living. And there was an ancient celebration of Velyanok, Great Night, that's still kind of around, and there's remnants of it in Slavic folk customs. Koleda. It's a kind of a combination of carnival and Halloween, and that happens anywhere from around Christmas to near the end of February. And that's where we start to get more into the spooky stuff. During that winter festival celebrating Veles, young men known as koledari or vukari would dress in long coats of black sheep's wool and don grotesque masks, and they'd roam around villages in groups, and they'd create a lot of noise, and they'd sing koleda songs and saying they'd traveled a long way, and how the lines are kind of important. They were all wet and muddy, and that's an allusion to the wet underworld of Veles, from which they came as ghosts. And the master of any house they visited would welcome them warmly and present them with gifts. And this is the part where I come clean. I figured, oh, okay, the Slavs did the Halloween thing later in the year. They're doing it around winter. Okay, got that handled. Or maybe it's really early in the year, depending upon your perspective. And then I found out about Veles' night, or the night of Veles. And now we get into our version of Halloween. So, let's don the hood, go for the spookier effect, at least hopefully. All right, the night of Veles. That's celebrated from the night of October 31st until November 1st. Hey, that sounds real familiar. Okay, November was seen as the gateway to the winter months. Veles' night symbolized the transition from the earthly world to the supernatural world, and nature seems to be dying or falling asleep. Even the soil's going to go to rest and is not going to awaken or reawaken until next spring, which is why plowing wasn't allowed until March. Also, probably with frozen soil, that probably really sucked. Okay, and it was at the end of October that the doors between the earthly world and the world of the spirits opened up, and that's going to allow spirits to come visit the earthly world, and for mortals to go to the spirit side. Veles was a guardian of the path between these two worlds. In a way, he was like Hermes or Loki, connected with magic. The word Volkov kind of derived from his name, and in some Slavic languages still means sorcerer. So add this to the gateways between the living and the dead being open. So what happens on the night of Veles? All right, here's what happens. Bonfires would be lit, people would dance around them, singing songs. Since magic was and is closely associated to music in some societies, Veles is also believed to be the protector of traveling musicians. And there'd be leaping over the fires, but that also occurs during Ivan Kupalo night near the summer solstice, or walking on hot coals, and that would symbolize purification and protection from the possibly evil spirits that are coming through the now open doors. This was also a time to venerate ancestral spirits, for it was on this night that deceased family members would return to visit the living. In order to welcome the spirits of the deceased ancestors properly, the house would be cleaned, and there would be a special meal prepared, and there would be an additional place setting for the spirits as well as place settings for the living. Lighting a candle and placing that in the window would help the soul find the way back to the house, because people would be living in the same houses traditionally. It was also tradition to leave a treat outside the house for the guests from the spiritual world. So it's not just about having the spirits show up and say, "Hey, how you doing?" Because they're dead. But these spirits might have something to teach the living that would be meaningful, or maybe they could provide protection, or they could warn of coming threats. Okay, that sounds kind of like predicting the future. Veles also was the protector of oracles, so this was also going to be an evening or a night of fortune telling, and also of making wishes, writing a wish down, placing it under a pillow, or maybe putting an apple there and saying something before sleep like, "A dark night, I curse you to help me. Veles, work hard, give me what I desire." All right, now back to Veles and Perun not playing nice together. In some versions, Veles would release dead spirits. He'd just kind of open the doors and go, "Hey, fly, my pretties." And they would pretty much invade the world, and that was just to anger Perun, who would chase them away or return them to the plane of the dead or the world of the dead with the help of other gods. And this connects with a version of Veles that's in the Baltic lands. Veles, who leads the Wild Hunt, which, if you know stuff about the Norse world and the Baltic world, that's kind of a scary thing, of a troop of spirits that marches across the skies on certain nights. That is more properly going to belong to the Day of the Dead, which I'm going to cover in about 2 videos from now. Because what I want to do in the next video is I want to talk about the masks that the Slavs made and used for rituals. So until the next time, do побачення.